Welcome everyone to this great session. I am super excited because today is World Refrigeration Day. I did my first session actually yesterday when I kicked off in New Zealand with a great team out there, EcoChill, Matthew Darby, Steve Gill. Hopefully Steve can pop on today. But today, me and James Bailey are going to be diving into something that we're very passionate about, something that been working on for a few years since we actually met and discussed and talked about the next generation of leadership and management. I'm super excited for this, and I'm really thank you for taking the time on World Refrigeration Day to come hang out with us.
I'll just add to that, Trevor. Welcome, everybody. Hope that you enjoyed today's presentation and very much in discussion, very much in the theme of keeping of World Refrigeration Day, which is focusing on next generation cooling. Now, just as important for me and Trevor is what does that next generation leadership look like? I think in the UK anyway, and in Europe, we've addressed a lot of the skill shortage issues that are associated with new technologies such as CO2 or whether it be hydrocarbon, flammable refrigerants. But where are the next generation of leaders coming from? Globally, we're in this industry where it's an aging, the engineering community is an aging community. And in the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be some real risks, but from those risks can turn into some incredible opportunities for either young or aspiring professionals who are thinking or are already climbing that career ladder. So hopefully today's just going to give a little bit of a small insight before me and Trevor actually jump into some further detail, because we've actually developed a program of study within leadership and management specifically for the HVAC and refrigeration area. So thank you very much. Topics that we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk about the importance of brand. So specifically talking about what makes an effective mission and vision, what makes effective beliefs and values of an organization, its purpose, what this presentation's all about, or this session's all about. Very, very broad, high-level commentary regarding leadership and management before moving on to organizational culture. 3 real pertinent themes for any business: motivation, resistance, and change, and how this links and the synergy that it has with the refrigeration industry before we wrap up talking about what next. Because me and Trevor, as I've previously said, we do have a defined plan in terms of giving a leadership and management program back to specifically the refrigeration and HVAC industry. Right now, I'm going to hand back over to Trevor just to let Trevor give you a whistle-stop tour if you don't already know who he is, what his background is. Over to you, Trevor.
Awesome. Thanks, James. My name is Trevor Matthews. I'm founder of Refrigeration Mentor, and we're all about training, educating, and mentoring in the refrigeration industry. Our whole goal here is to train HVAC and refrigeration professionals, and this is what we do best. We help develop their skills, from technical skills, leadership skills, management skills, and really hone in on our expertise in the refrigeration industry. And we really care about seeing others get to their full potential. And this is why me and James partnered up, because we're so excited to help so many people out there to get them to where they want to be. And this is what I'm really excited about today.
Hey, thanks for that, Trevor. Just real quickly, I'm a chartered engineer. I've worked in engineering now for 27 years, starting off as an apprentice mechanical engineer for the Federal Mogul Corporation before joining the refrigeration industry 21 years ago. I spent a number of years at EPTA, learning the ropes, so to speak, as a design and applications engineer trainee. And ever since, I've stayed in the world of consulting. So worked for a number of consultants over the years. I set up my first business late 2015, Wave Refrigeration, changed the operating model into an employee ownership trust model here in the UK. And one of the reasons was to reward the people who'd helped build that business. But secondly, I really wanted to follow on a real passion of mine, which is around training and mentoring, specifically the next generation of engineering professionals in our sector. So I've been fortunate enough in the past 18 months to work for some incredible organizations, to spend a lot of time with those next generation. So I'm talking graduates, I'm talking technicians who are on the tools, who are looking to move into more supervisory or management positions. junior design engineers, junior project managers. It's all becoming really successful, and there's some real natural synergies with myself and Trevor. Complementing my engineering acumen and building and growing a couple of businesses now, I hold a master's degree in business management. So that allowed me, and it gave me a toolbox of solutions. And in fact, a lot of what we're going to chat about today are those core tools that I've extracted and implemented from when I did my master's degree almost 10 years ago. I wrote a book late 2021, Culture Redefined. Really pleased it was endorsed by Investors in People, who are a recognised body in the UK, used to be a government organisation, now a private organisation. And I believe there are around 10,000 accredited businesses. So it's a great kite mark to have. Really proud that I was able to get an endorsement by their CEO. Just before I wrap up, last year, beyond humble and proud to have been awarded the Refrigeration Air Conditioning Gold Award back in September. That's on a twofold note, both on what I've contributed technically to the industry, but also in terms of development of future industry professionals and leaders.
We have the right people here, James. We have the right people for this leadership and management program, because this is game changing.
Absolutely. So I think moving on, Trevor, I think we're looking at the brand. I'm using that word loosely, and there's a number of facets that make up the brand. A mission statement. So for anybody out there who's working for a company and who want to aspire to greater levels of progression within that business, or those who are thinking about setting up their own, what is the mission? What does the business do? It has to be concise and a simple explanation of the organization's purpose. I find that by following your brand, knowing what your mission is, you're always going to be in a real good place to effectively hit the target. Know who your customers are, go after your customers, and make sure that you always come back and follow to your mission and vision. Talking about vision, that's the goal, that's an organization's goals or aspirations. Here we are in the world of refrigeration and its ever-changing landscape. Clearly, the clear goal, whether or not it's a consulting business, a training business, a manufacturing business, contracting business, whatever that business looks like in our industry, the goals and aspirations are quite simply, and that's environmental sustainability. We need to be focused on green technologies. We need to focus on achieving net zero, reducing those emissions, but at the same time, reducing energy consumption as well. In terms of mission and vision, although they sound really simple to come up with, they actually are, but it's adhering and sticking to them at all times. And I see that if you can nail that, you can hit your target, and you can become really, really successful. Underpinning everything, though, when it comes to brand, it's beliefs and values. So these are the principles that should underpin and guide an organization. So what do we mean by that? Well, any professional within our sector or any sector should act with respect, with integrity, should be respectful of other people's their views, their opinions, their understanding, and also we should be really ethical as well. Other examples could be diversity and inclusivity, but I think wrapping everything up, really acting with respect and with integrity goes a hell of a long way in determining how successful you're going to be within this industry.
And the branding is very important. It's not only for organization, it's your self brand as well. Like when you're out there, like that last piece that James said, integrity, respect, and ethic, that is a personal thing, your personal brand as well, not only your organization. So just remember that with the way you speak, the way you talk, the way you do social media, this is all part of you, and this is how you grow your brand.
Absolutely, Trevor. So we've got two issues. We've got two areas of brand there. We've got company brand and then personal brand, and the two should be very much interlinked, and there should be a lot of synergy in between those two. And we look at the brand, we could talk about marketing here. So Trevor, I mean, real compliment for you. I think ever since I've known you and I've seen this brand growing, always the blue t-shirts with Amiga Solutions logo. We've copied that, and that's a real sign of flattery for you, we've got the black t-shirts with Amiga Solutions logo. So when we go out and we meet people or we're in meetings, as long as it's a scaled back and relatively informal meeting, we're representing the brand, we're representing ourselves. This is who we are. And it's often understated in terms of how we present ourselves, how we talk. You hit the nail on the head, Trevor. Being professional, listening to people, asking questions, all really, really important. Moving on to the second sort of real key area, leadership and management. Ever since I sort of studied in the world of management, which was a long time ago now, about 15 years ago, I was introduced to three broad classifications: autocratic, participative, and laissez-faire. Now, when I was first introduced to those, I thought, I looked at those, well, autocratic, that's a leader who tells their employees what to do. And you kind of think, oh, that's not me. I don't want to ever be that. Then there's participative. And the whole philosophy around being participative is that your employees, the team, can see you chipping in, you're getting down with the work. You're not just telling, you're actually fostering an environment where people can be themselves and people can ask questions. People have the right to do things their own way. That, for me, when I was first introduced to that concept, I thought, yeah, that's the type of leader I am. That's the type of leader I want to be. Then there was the third broad classification, which is laissez-faire, which effectively means, in its broad sense, you read up about it, and it's a leader who isn't too concerned about results and equally not too concerned about people, where autocratic, very concerned about results, not so much people, and participative, has care and consideration towards people, but has more care towards people than they do the results. Laissez-faire somewhere sits in the middle. I always looked at the three and thought, well, there's only one management trait which is of any use there, and that's participative. However, I just want to take a little bit of time to explain where actually all three styles of leadership are appropriate and they can be adopted dependent upon a situation. So, for example, if you're spending time and working with a trainee within a business, there's the element of explaining, showing the trainee how to work, teaching them, mentoring them. But sometimes it's a very broad comment, and it's just an example. Sometimes you might have a trainee who's had quite a heavy weekend, been out partying, not on the 100% form on Monday morning. So sometimes you've actually got to toe the line of being quite autocratic, actually telling them what's required, as opposed to being an all-inclusive type manager. Similarly, laissez-faire, what I found from my experience, I've employed people who are highly experienced, people with 40 years industry experience. They don't need me to tell them what to do. And actually, you will find that they're very competent and they will rely on you as and when they need you. So actually, a laissez-faire approach to that type of professional at the other end of the spectrum is a good method as well, because they don't want to be pestered by their boss multiple times in a day. They know what their jobs are. They know what they need to do to get the work done. And then participative. So I would actually say, from my own experience, if I was to break it down to percentage as a leader, 60% of my time is participative, 20% autocratic, and 20% laissez-faire. In recent years, I've come across, as we probably all have on this call and those who are listening on LinkedIn, transformational, being a transformational leader. For me, there is no one size fits all definition. It's actually an amalgamation of those three specific styles. However, there's one thing that we need to be aware of being transformative, and it's a call out here. To be transformative, it's a style that inspires positive change in those who follow. And ultimately, as leaders, that's what we're here to do. We're looking to inspire that next generation. So if you are 100% autocratic all the time and non-approachable, you're not going to be particularly inspiring. If you're laissez-faire and you stand off and you just let employees do what they do, you're not particularly being inspiring there. So it's a blend of these three. but also always remember that what we were intending, especially as a leader, to drive success when you're managing people, is inspire those who are around you. Trevor, do you have anything to add? Any questions, perhaps?
Yeah, totally. Because I think this is a very good point, and it all depends on the organization you're in. I've seen it in multiple organizations where managers just let people do what they want, or the leaders, and over time, people just don't get the stuff done. So you don't get the results. The whole purpose of a leader, just like James says, is to inspire others. So you see massive results. At the end of the day, what the leadership wants is everyone to be excited about what they're doing, getting the results. And when you start to get results, and your team starts to get results, they get inspired. They're like, wow, this is incredible. I never thought we could accomplish things like this. And that's where a great leader comes in. Not It's above manager, because manager thing, because I've seen it all the realms. I work in lots of different organizations, and then I've seen other people, like James says, you're just someone telling, they're just like a tyrant, just this is this, and that gets to a point. It all depends on your team, and this is where a real leader comes in. You understand the different personalities of your team. Is this hard? Yes. But those good leaders work on this day in, day out, to understand each personality of each person, how to get them to their full potential, get them motivated to become their own leader, leading themselves. A good leader helps their team lead themselves to want to get their tasks done, their jobs done, to get those results that we're looking for, because we all are looking for results in whatever we do, if it's personal, career, life. And I think this comes back to having those traits of a transformational leader.
Trevor, you hit on two key words there. I think just to wrap up nicely on this slide is a leader's job is to help, and to help those people grow in their jobs that they do, and hopefully set them and give them a platform where they can become leaders themselves. And I will say this, from my experience as a chartered engineer, it's much easier being handed a complex technical problem than it is becoming a competent leader and somebody who can inspire others. It really, really is, from my experience. And I think just a little image I put down there on this slide, Trevor, just to show what leadership's all about. It's helping put those other people on a platform. In my former company, I have a platform where every month, or thereabouts, I would put one of the trainees or one of the younger members of team on a pedestal, because it was out of pride that we want the industry to know who these people are. It gives them a sense of pride because they've been given a shop window to showcase themselves and to sell their brand of who they are. And I think that's really, really important. We need to promote and push the next generation, not just tell them in between four walls how good a job that they're doing, but actually tell them through social media channels, tell people on the website, because there's nothing more, in my opinion, that potential or existing customers like to see more than the successes the younger people, the next generation, are already having in their early careers. And to me, that's really what leadership, when we're talking next generation, is all about. Trevor, you touched on leadership and management. For me, very broadly, let's break them down. For me, what is leadership is about? It's about creating a vision. What's that vision of the company? Where do we want to be? How are we going to get there? To define strategies and to implement good, solid beliefs and values within an organization. Management, on the other hand, is a process of assuring that objectives are implemented. Those processes, those procedures, ways of working, although the strategic aspects and the vision may be created by a main board, if it's a very large company, that they're actually managed individually. Now, from my side here, there's a very fine crossover between leadership and management here. In a small organization and an organization that's growing, you are the leader of that business, but at the same time, you may also be managing those processes, managing and making sure the work's being done. So, but it all comes back to that first word of leadership, which is actually that leader needs to be inspirational, because if you inspire others, even young members of a team with little experience can take away some of those day-to-day managing of tasks and making sure that tasks are completed on time and to the expected quality. So in a wrap for this slide, whether or not you're a leader, you're a manager, ultimately teamwork and involving every member of a team is absolutely crucial for business success. I hand over to you, Trevor. Have you got anything to add before we sort of look at organizational culture?
I think a lot of people mix up leadership and management. I think that's a big thing. If you're in an organization where you have strong leadership and strong management, you still can tell the difference. At the end of the day, those people that you hear up, say, talking in front of the group, you will feel inspired. I really believe understanding the goals of that leadership team is very important. And if you're on a team that your values, your beliefs, your ethics are aligned with, you're going to see and feel a lot more connected to that leadership team as well. So it's very important, the teams that you're on, the company you work for, the company you run, you have to be working towards a similar vision or goal. If you're not, go find that organization, because that's going to help you get to your next level in your career, hands down, and find good people that have similar visions and passions who can take you to your next level in your career for sure, and your personal life. Because I see this, those leaders who have that vision, who have the strategies, those are going to help you achieve what you are not achieving right now. It's so key to do that. And with management, there's lots of good managers and there's a lot of poor managers. And you'll be able to tell that right away. If someone is micromanaging you, I've seen this, I've had this happen before, every little tiny detail, and don't let you take a chance or let you fail or potentially fail. This is how you learn. Good leaders will let you challenge yourself. That's what great leaders let you challenge yourself, where managers, like especially micromanagers, are pushing you to what they need and want. It's a big difference.
Trevor, absolutely. And I think this is why I always looked at the brand, the mission, the vision, beliefs, and values. They're the bedrock of a company. That's what culture goes back to. That's what leadership goes back to. Where motivation is required, go back to your brand. If there's any resistance, go back to your brand. And just talking from my experience now with an ever-growing small team at Amiga, I might consider myself, yeah, I'm quite a good leader. But as you know, Brian Churchard, who joined, probably the best leader I've come across, spent 15 years at Asda Walmart, inspiring and getting people to buy into those strategic vision and values. But there's nothing clear, I think it's so important. Big team, small team, we share our work between us, and that is so important. There's no hierarchy as such. We all have our strengths, and I think as leadership and management, it's playing to individual strengths and helping them where they have weaknesses, but focus on what is your superpower. Your superpower, you might be an absolutely fantastic technical engineer, but you might not be a people person. You might be a really good people person, communicator, but you can't write a report. You might be brilliant at writing reports and being customer facing, but you don't necessarily have the depth and breadth of technical understanding. Well, that's okay. We're all here to help each other to get better, to address our weaknesses, but it all comes from leadership, being inspirational at the same time. Just moving on now, Trevor, going to look at culture, organizational culture. These are values, beliefs, and methods of interactions that create the environment of the organization. Culture it must be driven by leadership. And to have the most effective, the very best organizational culture, every single person within a company must feel involved. At a small company, it's relatively easy to instill a good culture, although we can all have good days, all have bad days. In a small company, when a leader is not in a good place, whatever's happened, they might have bumped the car at the weekend, had a fallout with their wife or husband at home, all these things that we can bringing to the workplace with us. From there, what we need to be able to have here is when we're talking specifically on the organizational culture side, we need everybody to buy into that culture, which is driven by leadership. So just using the example before I just got waylaid on the small company, if we look at a big company, it's so important because there's so many tiers, all the way from trainees, if it's an OEM, operatives in an office, administration, all the way through to sales, project management, design. On the practical side, installation, commissioning, servicing. It's very difficult at that level to try to buy everybody into an effective organizational culture. One of the things which I think could be a problem, I'm sure it's been successfully navigated, but it surrounds the impact of COVID. We saw a lot of remote working, so a lot of teams potentially disconnected. Although we have these great technology platforms like the one we're on now, Zoom and Teams, sometimes it's just not the same as that face-to-face interaction. So I think from an organizational culture perspective, I think this is something, whether it's a small or a larger company, that we need to be mindful of if we want to maintain and enhance and make our culture better, make our workplace a better place to be for everybody. Enhanced levels of communication are going to be required.
Yeah, no, I think this is definitely a key. And I've seen this in organizations where the culture started to increase and everything is going great. And then all of a sudden that leader leaves the organization and everything of the culture goes down. So that is not, even though that was a good leader in his own way, that leader was a one-person leader, not an organizational leader. Because a real leader, if they left the organization, that team should continue to be able to go on. And we've seen this in big companies. I read lots of business books, I read lots of biographies, and all the time, leaders and lots of people think, oh, these are a great leader. But if that leader leaves the company, all of a sudden things fall apart. That is not a good culture in the organization. You got good leadership, but the culture is not there. And you can see this. And when everybody's involved, just like James says here, everyone needs to feel involved, and good leaders make that happen. And when that happens, then you have a culture around that organization, a culture around the people inside the organization. When you have that, you see huge results, massive results. Because when everyone feels included, and like James says, there's people that have bad days. There's a lot of mindset stuff. Somebody could have passed away or divorced or whatever it is. Things happen, car accidents, like James said. But when everybody's involved, you can see other people helping pick up where there's people maybe not making it, failing at something, or really assisting to get there. And that's a culture. That's not just, okay, you just go do your job. People care inside organizations. And I've seen this. And I've seen teams just skyrocket results because they have a good culture.
Absolutely, Trevor. And you've hit the nail on the head. People will come and they will go. And I think if you pass the baton over for whatever reason, you move on from a company, you take a new job and you're a leader, actually that culture, it shouldn't ever be down to one person, because if it has been down to one person, that leader's actually not necessarily done a very effective job. I think the role of a new leader coming in, work out what's good and actually seek what could be made better by the team. So if you're a company, you've got results up here, how do you get them up there? It's actually easy if you're a leader and you're joining an organization where the culture is poor and everything about it, because at least you can put building blocks in place. A company that already has that brilliant, best-in-class culture, it's a little bit more difficult for a leader joining, and the onus there is to learn what is it about the culture that's so good, but what can be made better, because there's always room for improvement.
And I think good leaders want that feedback, and good leaders give great feedback. Most people don't like the feedback that they get, but good leaders can give feedback that helps that person grow. And then when you have a good culture, people want to find out how they can get better, how they can improve, how they can make their life less stressful. And I know for sure good leaders and good culture make that happen.
Absolutely, Trevor. And you raise a good thing about the leadership and the culture. You can't always be everybody's best friend. And as long as feedback is constructive and it's not an out and out criticism. I think if you keep on making the same mistakes, it becomes, you've got to move on from the constructive feedback phase, of course. But I think that's so important, especially when we talk about those two words, next generation. Young people are not going to do a job and it's going to be right 100%. We know that. Offer praise, but also be constructive in where improvements are absolutely necessary. And hopefully that just helps that person to grow and motivates them to become even better, which I think takes us nicely, Trevor, onto the next theme of this session, which is motivation, resistance, and change, which are three very distinct areas to begin with, Trevor. I mean, the three very broad areas, and we could spend hours and hours on each theme, the huge areas. But I've grouped them together for the sake of, we've got an hour here. Motivation. So what's motivation? It's things that encourage employees to be committed, for those employees to want to be better, to always constantly strive to improve. Resistance. Intrinsically, resistance is linked to both motivation and change. So resistance, it occurs to a change. And this can be a major hindrance in future development and success. I think the prime one that I'll use, in the early days of adopting low GWP refrigerants here in the UK, there was actually a resistance to actually want to be involved with CO2. There were those who wanted it because it was change. It was, hey, this is different. I want to learn. But then there was also honing in on those negative aspects, which is, wow, this pressure is 5 times the working pressure of synthetic refrigerants. Don't want to work on it. And that negative mindset can get into the minds of colleagues, co-workers, and others. So rather than embracing the change, becoming resistant to it. I think quite clearly over the past, even up to the last decade now, we've seen a lot of young people join the industry. We've seen those who embrace the change of low GWP refrigerants. And I'm not just talking CO2 here, there's hydrocarbons, A2L refrigerants. We're buying into the change, and we're seeing now these technologies are now second nature. Although there's much more HFC refrigerant out there, next generation refrigerants, they're what's being specified most of the time now in all sectors of the industry. Let's overcome any resistance and any barriers. And it'd be interesting, actually, Trevor, once I've spoke what I'm going to go through on this slide, to see what you see as resistance in North America, being a little bit behind the curve of implementing, say, CO2 as a refrigerant as opposed to UK and Europe.
Yeah, for here in North America, what I see is there's a lot of inconsistency in information. There's a lot of, I don't know if it's different tactics, but people just aren't aware of what is happening and the changes, how fast they're happening. And just like you said, a lot of people do not like change. And when you do not like change, that gives you a lot of thoughts of why something's wrong. You think in your head, well, this is wrong. We shouldn't be doing this. Or why does this have to happen while I'm doing this? And it goes for older and even younger people. A lot of the older people are like, well, I'm retiring soon, I'm not going to worry about it. That is a closed mindset, fixed mindset. And then the newer people are just, that I see, is that they don't know. Nobody's mentoring them, coaching them, helping them. So they're at a loss for what direction to go. And this is where I see resistance. Well, if I don't know where to go, why should I be investing my time into this?
Absolutely, Trevor. And that resistance and reticence to change, that can even impact, I like to think I'm quite embracing of change, specifically within our sector. But just little things like, I go out running and I probably get 400 or 500 miles out of a pair of sneakers. And if I can't get the exact same one, I will look at reasons why I don't like the new. It's all a mindset thing. So I know it's a little bit out there analogy, but we can all be resistant to change in some areas, whether it's professional or within our personal lives. Talking back from a professional capacity, when we talk about change, once you've instilled that brand and you've got that mission and vision and people adhere to it, and we know what the shared values and beliefs and what the goals and aspirations of the company are, it's then your leadership and culture that ensures motivation will reduce or hopefully eliminate resistance to change. So let's take us all to that next level in terms of, we've got somebody who's maybe a little bit resistant, that hey, I don't want to work on this refrigeration system because it's flammable. Well, actually, if we follow the best practices, it's irrespective of what refrigerant we should use, they will be safe. So it's a mindset thing. The big takeout here, Trevor, just before I move on, is motivation, overcoming resistance, and embracing change is absolutely critical for our industry. The theme of World Refrigeration Day today, next generation cooling. We're in a period of change globally.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And when I talk about motivation, it's not only leadership and management that needs to motivate people, you need to motivate yourself as well. Like
Mhm.
me and James getting on here and talking, we love refrigeration. We love helping people, teaching people, educating people. And this is why we built a leadership and management program to help others. But the big thing is you got to find things that motivate you to want to get up in the morning to come and do things like this. This is why we get up, because we want to help others. We want to share our knowledge with other people so they can get motivated to get accomplish the things they want. And there are going to be roadblocks, and you're going to have days that are tough, and you're going to have days that are hard, and there's going to be lots of change. But when you get outside your comfort zone and when you start to see that change happening and evolve, the sky's the limit. It's not even a limit. You can go past that because there is so much opportunity there for professionals just like yourself.
Absolutely. I second that 100%, Trevor.
We do have a question here, and maybe we can take it later, but how do we encourage the youngsters to get into leadership?
That's a really great question, Trevor. And I'll use my own experience here. When I was young, completing my apprenticeship, work, although I was interested in it, I was interested in learning and I did all my qualifications. It wasn't the be all and end all for me. It was a hindrance that got in the way of me partying, spending time with friends. Leadership and managing didn't come anywhere near my psyche. Working within the industry in my first 3, 4, 5 years within the industry, I was just happy to learn and develop as a design engineer and project manager. And what actually inspired me to actually make that transition, and it was a lot of years ago, we're talking 17 years ago, was not having the most effective management and leadership around me, Trevor. And that was a catalyst for me actually wanting to take on a little bit more. As I said, we can all have bad days, but I've worked for thankfully, the majority of people I've worked for and with have been absolutely fantastic. But that was a catalyst for me personally. So it wasn't the best catalyst. So the question that's being asked, my catalyst was I weren't happy in terms of leadership, strategic direction, how I was being managed per se. But how do we take a young person and want them to develop? The reality is some people will never want to be in a leadership role. Some people will never want to be in a management role. They'll be quite happy being that technical guru, working as a marketing function or working, assembling and building refrigeration plants. So it's a real difficult one, but it's true. We need to get to a stage. How do we address that? Because we're going to see a significant number of experienced leaders, not just experienced engineering professionals who retire. And I'm not just talking the UK, this is globally. How do we infuse people to take those reins? So it can be a number of things. You can throw money at people. Money will always motivate people, but for me, seldom is it the answer in terms of if you want to generate a leader. I think it's just being there, being that good quality mentor, providing opportunities. I think if you identify talent or talent seeks out a leadership opportunity, I think away from that workplace mentoring, they need to be given the opportunities to go gain qualifications external to the sector that they operate in, have cohorts, whether it be on college courses or online courses, who they can talk to, who they're building close relationships with, but each other doesn't actually understand the intricacies of their own role and the dynamics that exist within their respective organizations. That's a good way, but brilliant question, Trevor. I mean, can you add anything to that?
Now, I really think it's just showing them, teaching them, mentoring them, coaching them. There's not enough coaches in our industry to, especially in the leadership side, showing them the possibilities of the industry. A lot of people that are in the field will say they hear all the bad things about being a leader or being a service manager, or getting on project management or into sales. And then that just impregnates in their mind. Well, I'll never want to do something like that. And then I
Mhm.
see all the time on social media the negative things of getting into a leadership role, but there's
Mhm.
so many good things about it. You don't hear about that amazing service manager all the time, and why they took the business to the next level, or why this certain salesperson went from working in the field, working their way up into these roles to really develop and build the relationships, which is really huge in what we're talking about, building the relationships and those leadership relationships to help a company grow and help that culture and that team grow. And it's so important with talking to the younger people coming in, the opportunity, building a path for them. This is what I do and work with a lot of organizations. This is what me and James are going to do, is help build a leadership path for your organization. This is so important. And this is why we don't see more younger people getting into those leadership roles, because there's a lot of negative talk towards it. But I see some of the best leaders, best CEOs of companies in refrigeration were in the field. So this is something that we need to do. We need to teach them. We need to coach them. We need to mentor more young people of why they should be striving to be the public speaker of their company, striving to be the top talent, the leaders of that organization. And we, as leaders now, need to start passing this down so they get inspired to become a leader of their organization.
Absolutely. How's about this, Trevor? Just to expand onto the question, what if every young professional in the industry was taught a little bit about leadership? They can make a young person can make their own decision and think, this leadership thing, it's not for me, but for others it could be, hey, I never even thought of it being a defined pathway. It's something that I think I'll enjoy doing. Because I guess when you're younger, the more whether or not you want to make that transition, often at a younger age, it's all about getting a foothold, a little bit of experience, earning the money so you can get on in life and buy that first house, or whatever it is you want to do. But I think the critical thing is here is you always look up at the person above you and think, I wish I was doing their job. Their job's easy. You might be in an office and using AutoCAD or designing. I want to be that project manager. You become project manager and you realize I'm getting battles from every side. I've got an upset client. I've got a builder who's throwing me problems and all these problems to sort out. I've got to deal with all the traffic on the road. Then you think, I no longer want to be a project manager. I want to be the operations manager. And all of a sudden you look and you think, oh, the director, the senior leader of this company, this is great. And then you actually realize when you're in that position, the sleepless nights that you have when you're growing your business and you need to make sure that you've got that positive cash flow to ensure that you can pay people, to ensure that you're looking after them adequately. So it's a really interesting dynamic, that of leadership and management as well, and how far an individual wants to go. But perhaps a method to address it is give a little bit of exposure to any aspiring professional within the industry. So just moving on, we've touched on the broad topics of business brand, leadership and management, culture, motivation, resistance and change. Why are these so important to us right now? If we consider World Refrigeration Day, why does it exist? It exists to raise the profile of the work that we all do, that we all contribute to. Those management leadership topics, why are they important? Well, we're an environmentally focused world. We're dependent on organizations and individuals who operate with purpose and have sustainable goals and aspirations. These aspects for environmental sustainability are critical because we've entered a new dawn of transitioning away from high GWP refrigerants to help us decarbonize, to help us meet net zero. So in meeting that aim, and that's an overriding aim of our industry, the refrigeration industry, and those and that wider sphere covering HVAC as well, leadership and management, we must inspire positive change to ensure that the change to an environmentally friendlier, lower carbon future is achieved. These are key takeouts. And moving on to the final, from a cultural perspective, organizations should seek to harness a culture that involves everybody, all their employees, as we transition to next generation cooling. You see, just as an example, we could have here an organization who's providing service and maintenance, and we've got an apprentice straight out of school, straight out of college. It's really important that these youngsters are motivated, because they're potentially the ones who are delivering that job in 4 or 5 years, and those who are potentially entering the world of leadership in 9 or 10 years. And we're talking not about known sort of synthetic HFC technologies that we've known for the last 30 years plus and various precursors. We're talking about different refrigerants and that transition. So ultimately, we need from day one, when that young person joins or is learning within that industry, that they're within a working culture which allows them to develop and flourish. And that brings me on to the last point of this area: motivation. Overcoming resistance and embracing change are going to be critical to ensure success as we transition to next generation cooling. We'll be moving on a little bit, Trevor, to talk about our next stages. I don't know whether or not you just want to add to that in terms of the transition, what we talk about, the transition to next generation cooling, and actually why it's not just technology focused, it's people focused as well.
Yeah, we need to focus more on leadership, more on people, more on the culture inside our organization, inside our groups, because this is what's going to make a change in our industry. And we need to help collectively, globally. This is why me and James have teamed up to help your teams, to help your organization, to really support you to build more leaders, to help you overcome obstacles, to build that culture around your organization. And we're super excited to let you know about our launch.
Absolutely, which we'll go into a little bit now. So as Trevor intimated, as we spoke about briefly at the beginning, so Refrigeration Mentor and Amiga Solutions, we're launching a next generation leadership and management program specifically for HVAC&R professionals. It's going to be a wide area because we're not specifically going into the technical nitty-gritty where courses exist, where either designers will go on one or technicians will go on another. This program is going to be wide reaching. So we're going to target technicians, we're going to target graduates, we're going to target junior design engineers and junior project managers, people from marketing, from sales, from accounts, finance, anybody who wants to progress their career, but specifically tailored to the changing landscape of our industry. So it's going to be designed by leaders in the HVAC industry for the HVAC/R industry. Really excited to do so.
Yeah, I threw the link in the chat if you want to book a call with us to learn more about this program, because we really believe it's going to help get you to that change. Or if you know someone inside your organization who are looking for leadership skills, looking to help build a better culture inside your organization, book a call with us and we'll dive into our program that's really going to set you off and get you to where you want. I do have another question for you, James, off LinkedIn here. They say our team has recognized that the process for change into a good culture can take years depending on the condition of the culture as becomes more important. It's amazing to me to see so many companies completely ignore the call, even when the call is loud and clear. Love to hear James' opinion.
Great question. It's not really a question per se, but what a statement that is. It's disappointing to hear, because I think any effective leader should be looking to push and promote a culture. And it doesn't surprise me that it's taking years to instill something and change. It's just disappointing. I'd like to just reach out, actually, Trevor, to whoever the comment is. Feel free to get in touch with myself or you via LinkedIn, and we can take a conversation offline. But it's true. To get an effective culture will take time, but if we're talking years, that's disappointing. I can only hazard a guess that that's probably quite a large company where there's lots of divisions, lots of tiers of leadership, lots of different dynamics and things going on.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. In a larger organization, you cannot change. You can slowly change the culture, but if it's taking years, there's something drastic that needs to happen.
Something amiss. Absolutely, Trevor. Yeah, as Trevor says, get in touch with us in the message box with a direct link. Look, thank you to everybody. My email address up there, there's Trevor's email address. Find me on LinkedIn, find Trevor on LinkedIn, get in touch. Absolutely. And just like to hand over to anybody out in the audience, maybe here on the call, with any further questions.
We did have another question. Do you think we need to promote the positive sides of being a leader? Youngsters normally hear the bad side of leaders and mentors. Well, I'll take this. Well, we did mention this already, is that for sure we need to talk about a huge amount more of what is so amazing about helping take an organization to that next step.
Trevor, that is brilliant, because the whole mentality is, or our mentality is, when you talk about leadership against employees, it's an us and them mentality. And I think that happens no matter where we are globally, whether or not you're in Canada, whether or not we're here in the UK, or wherever that may be. That is so important in terms of getting the message across. Leadership isn't this old, archaic, horrible thing, but why do people feel that way? So for me, getting the message across, it's easy. A good leader isn't always going to make decisions that are going to please everybody, that's for sure. And sometimes you've got to make decisions which, they're uncomfortable decisions to make, but we've got to take decisions as leaders, considering the big picture, considering the benefit of the organization. But really interesting, the us and them, I think that will always exist, Trevor. And I think it's only, for me personally, it only came to, I never looked when I was training in this sector or previously, an us and them mentality. I was always very participative in terms of working with colleagues, whoever it is who asked me to do something. If it's within my ability, I've still got no problem who asked me to do something. But the catalyst for me was seeing what bad actually looked like, and then for me wanting to do something about that. But I think the us and them, yeah, let's hope we can change mindsets, Trevor.
Yeah, we will.
Absolutely. Well, Trevor, I think I'd just like to take the time to thank everybody who's joined in on the Zoom call today, and everybody else who's joined in via LinkedIn.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll see you at the next session of Leadership and Management with James and Trevor. See you, everyone.
Absolutely. Happy World Refrigeration Day to everybody.
Hey, thank you for watching this video. I do hope it is bringing you a lot of value. If you are looking to grow and build your refrigeration teams and want them to learn CO2 refrigeration, head to the refrigerationmentor.com website, click to contact us, and let us know how we can build a culture around training inside your organization. Let's get a conversation going.